that we see over here, it's our job to solve the following equation. Now, there is a certain list that I like you guys to kind of go step by step, so that way when you guys get whatever equation you got, you have at least a basic kind of pathway, so to speak. Now, the first thing that you should do is always try to get rid of these parentheses. Now, notice that a parentheses is a -4, so don't forget to distribute whatever's inside to those parentheses. Now, this is where 99% of the mistakes happen, is in distributing something that's negative. Notice that this -53 has nothing to do with it. -5 is staying there. -4 times 3n is a -12n. -3 times a -3 is a +12. So if you come up with an answer that's a decimal, good chances that you probably did something wrong. Now, if you did something wrong on the first step, it's usually because students forget to distribute the negative throughout. So double check your paper, make sure that you got that +12 at the end. Now, just like the list suggests, after we try to get rid of those parentheses, we're going to try to combine some like terms. Now, looking at the left side, is there any like terms that I could combine? Yeah, the 12 and the -5, which are going to combine to be a +7. Notice the -12n is really just hanging out there. Now that you have that, you'll notice that, okay, do I have variables on one side or two sides? And what do you guys think in this example here? How many variables do you have? One. That means they're on one side. That means you have to get rid of everything else around it. We're solving for that variable. What do you get rid of first, the 7 or the 12? The 7. So here I go, minusing 7 on both sides. You end up with the -60 is equal to 12n. Dividing by -12, you end up with n is equal to a +5. Would everybody agree with that so far? All right. Now, do you guys need a little more time to try number 2? Should we just kind of go for it?
No, I want to do a race.
All right. So let me pause this recording, and then you guys could go ahead, try this out, and then we'll go over it. We'll try little equations, and we'll call it a day after that. All right. So when you look at this first example here, it's more of the same stuff, right? This is something that's super. It's a mechanical kind of thing that you have to make sure that you got down, right? So if you see parentheses, the first thing you got to do is always remember to distribute. That -43 is going to stay exactly the same. That -3 is also going to stay the same. But now I'm going to distribute that -4. -4 times 2b is a -8b. -4 times +2 is a -8. So double check to make sure that you're distributing that negative throughout. I was walking around and a lot of mistakes happen where they would just leave it as a positive. Make sure you distribute that negative throughout. Now let's go ahead and look at both sides. Is there any like terms that I can combine? Clearly on the left side, I only have a -43, but on the right, what could I combine? -3 and -8, which equals a -11. Notice that the AB is just watching. And now we can see if we have variables on one side or two sides. So what do you guys think, on one side or two sides? One. So that means that you could solve for it. Now, what do you get rid of first? The -11 or the 8? -11. Now, for some reason, I decided to add 12, and I have no clue why. So I'm gonna go ahead and erase that and add 11 to both sides because I'm trying to cancel out that 11. Now, -43 plus 11 is a -32, which is equal to a -8b. Finally, dividing by -8 on both sides, you end up with a +4 is equal to b.
Yeah, really.
Okay, put it. I got it right there.
You said
Okay, well,
Yeah, so in this very first one, notice that we have the equation 3x minus 2y is equal to a -4. And I want you guys to solve for x. That means I want an equation written that has x equals. Now, there's multiple ways of doing this, but the way I like to do it is just like I solve my equations. I like to put a line down the equal sign because it helps me see two sides of an equation. And then I circle what I'm trying to solve for. So in this situation, I'm solving for x. So that means I need to get that x isolated. I need to get it by itself. So I have to get rid of three things. I have to get rid of that 3. I have to get rid of that -2y. Now, which one should I get rid of first?
the why.
Remember that the y, yeah, because that 3 is multiplying, this 2y is subtracting. What do we always get rid of first? Well, we're adding and subtracting, right? So if I see that 2y, I'm gonna get rid of it by moving it to the other side. And how I mathematically do that is by doing the opposite of whatever it's doing. So if that's a +2y and I add 2y, that technically cancels out or subtracts out. We're gonna be left with 3x is equal to -4 plus 2y. Now, can you combine those? Are those like terms? Can you add or subtract those? No, so I'm just gonna go ahead and rewrite it over. Now, it's always appropriate to have your guys' variables followed by your your constant. So just make sure that your variables always go first. Now let's get rid of, well, first, let's think of what are we doing? We're still starting for X. So how would you get rid of that 3?
Nothing.
You wouldn't plus 3 because it wouldn't be
Nothing.
minus it, right? What is that 3 doing the X? Subtracting, adding, or dividing? Or multiplying? Is it adding, subtracting, dividing, or multiplying? Multiplying. So how would you undo a multiplying by 3? Yeah. Now keep in mind that when you do to one side, you have to do the whole side and make sure you divide everything by 3. These 3's divide out, you're gonna be left with X is equal to 2 divided by 3.
You divided?
Yes, because remember that 3 was multiplying, right? Now keep in mind, I have 2 divided by 3. Can you divide 2 by 3?
No,
No, can you reduce it?
yes.
No, you cannot reduce it. There's no number that divides 2 and 3 evenly that is not 1. Can I divide 4 by 3? No. Can you reduce it? No. So that means that this is your solution. A lot of students have trouble in this unit because you do work, but technically you don't simplify the work. So it feels a little unnatural. So with a little bit more practice, you just get used to it. You guys are going to do just fine. Let's go ahead and do number 4. I'm going to put a pause. I'm going to walk around, see if I can clarify number 3 in any shape, any way, shape, or form.
Are we solving for X and all?
So you'll notice the first thing I did here was write a line down my equal sign because it helps me visually see 2 sides of an equation. Then I circled what I was solving for, and each problem is going to be different. This one's asking me to solve for Y, so that's why I circled that Y. And now you can see that I pointed these arrows at it the best I could to kind of just show me, hey man, you need to get rid of these 2 things. Now, just as mentioned before, we always want to get rid of what we're adding and subtracting. That 2 is multiplying, that 3x is adding. So how do you get rid of a 3x? Negative 3x. So there I go. I'm minusing 3x on both sides. I can see that these are going to divide out. I'll be left with 2y is equal to 16 minus 3x. Now, I want to remind you guys that that variable always has to go first. So I'm going to do the negative 3x. Now, what a lot of students I see doing is that they'll just drop the 16, but they don't know what sign goes out in front. Now, is this 16 a positive or negative? Positive. So you want to have a little plus there to tell the reader, hey man, you're adding it to 16, okay? So don't forget that. Now we're almost there. I see that again. I'm solving for y, so I'm isolating it. All I have to do now is get rid of that 2. And how would I get rid of it? Divide. So let's divide everything by 2, and let's make sure that we take our time and figure out what can be divided and what cannot. Can we divide 3 by 2? No. Let's just rewrite it over as 3 over 2x. Now can we divide 16? Yeah, because what's 16 divided by 2? Yep, and that's it. You now have your equation that is in that form.
Yay, I done them all.